Cool. So, Paul, great to meet you, sir. Thank you for
Yeah.
taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Joe, thanks for having me. I'm really
Yes, sir.
excited.
Me too, man.
Yeah,
So let's begin our journey with this. I always start with this question. 6 years ago, the pandemic changed so much about everything.
sure.
How did you get through that COVID era, and how has it influenced the way that you work and live today?
I mean, that's great, because it changed everything for everybody, I
Yeah.
think. It's kind of a funny answer. We're talking about we kind of riff a little. So it actually helped my coaching, I would say.
Yeah.
Because as we kind of had to narrow in our groups of people who we were close with, I live in an apartment building here in LA. And there were a couple of couples, friends of mine, who I spent more time with than maybe I would have if we were in a normal, open economy and, whatever, normal lifestyle. So, in spending so much time with these couples, I really got to notice things that just drew my attention to issues in their relationships. And I was able to kind of, for lack of a better term, a case study, if you will. But I really dug in and just it kind of like with a magnifying glass was able to not, in an open conversation per se, but dissect what I was seeing. And I had time, because we weren't all working the same way we were. And I really love doing that. I love doing that with relationships. I'm fascinated by how humans get along. And um, I gained some incredible insight that I've been able to extrapolate as being very relatable to, a lot of my earlier theories, but it gave me more depth. It gave me more detail. And even to kind of fascinatingly with these two couples, it was the guy in each couple who I was, buddies with. Um, they were living almost the identical problem. And I noticed each of them could see it in each other, but not themselves.
Wow.
And it was like somebody looking in a mirror being like, man, what an ugly reflection that is. What isn't it interesting how ugly that reflection is? Glad I'm not him. And you're like, what?
Yeah. What the human psychology is weird that way, though. It's like they always say, whatever you really want is always right in front of you. One way or another, it's
Yeah.
in front of you, but it's like we have these blinders on. And I don't know if it's the ego or, especially with men, it's like we bury and tamp things down. Only
Mhm.
certain genies come out of the bottle. It's weird, you know?
It's fascinating, man, because I've had guys who will ask me for help. Like more like I find it when it's friends. They kind of they know what I do, and so they'll ask me sort of a offshoot. Nothing, not ask me to like sit down for a session. But they'll be like, hey, what do you? And I'll offer it to them. And they'll be like, that's not me. You go, well, because you haven't really bought in, as I like to say, the critical part of how I can help people is they have to buy in. And I
Yeah.
don't mean financially, although that's usually a good indicator, but they've got to say, okay, I'm open to change. I'm insisting on change.
Yeah.
I'm open to how we get there. And I'll hear you because it's fascinating. As you're saying, it can be right in front of you.
Yeah.
And I think part of it too is you got to be somehow clever enough to help people figure it out on their own.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one wants, it's like what? It's like a video game. Do you want me to go beat Mario right in front of you?
Uh-huh.
No, that sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, there's a whole world of that now. People who just watch other guys play video games, but
Yeah.
you want to do it,
Yep.
like, so there's some of that. I think that's part of the bridge is when it's right in front of you. If you can find a way to feel like you came up with it,
Yep.
that's probably the shortest way to cross that bridge, I think.
So let's fully open the door up to what you do on a regular basis. I'm going to put you in
Yeah,
front of 12-year-olds at career day. And one of
sure.
the kids wants to know, what do you do for a living? How do you answer them?
I help people to feel great about themselves. That's step one.
Yeah.
And then step two is then I show you how to turn that excitement into an opportunity to have a great relationship with others.
So what did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your dream gig?
I think an actor.
Yeah.
I grew up in the 80s and I saw Kirk Cameron on Growing Pains and I was like, that dude's got it,
Yeah,
man. That's not even just the character, like the dude, like Kirk Cameron, man, he's a good-looking guy. He's in great shape, man, I would love to be that guy.
yeah. He was the
And
guy. Yeah.
huh?
He was the guy. In fact, I think he lives in Missouri. He lives somewhere in southern Missouri, and he has a big, I think he's a preacher or he has a big company along those lines. So,
He's very religious. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but you've done comedy, you've done all kinds of things on stage. So, talk
Yeah.
to me a little bit about your chops and how you evolved to this place where you're helping people feel better and have better relationships.
Yeah. So the way it began was, I think, the only way to get there, unfortunately. You got to feel horrible about yourself. That's, I mean, no one's going to listen to a guy who just came flying out of the womb like Tom Brady day one. Is like, well,
Yeah,
just be awesome. Just be awesome and everything will go your way. And you're like, I don't understand how anyone doesn't get it. No, so I grew up, I was a fat kid growing up in a poor neighborhood. My parents didn't have any money. We had, I joke, we famously didn't buy cars that cost over $500. Like we had almost like disposable $200 cars, it seemed. Um, I was vegetarian by no interest of my own. I just was raised, my hippie parents were like, oh, let's be kind to animals. Yeah, cool. But we should also get some, nourishment. I don't know what that's all
yeah.
about. Uh, and then you have to explain to kids in a bad neighborhood who I moved there a little bit later, I guess it felt, and what this polysyllabic vegetarian word means. And they're just like, I'm already embarrassed. I don't know what it means, so I want to beat you up. And now that I know it means you don't eat meat, I really want to beat you up. And so and then add in just to ice the cake, I had a very significant stutter until around junior high. I guess it kind of got better. But so yeah, being fat, poor, vegetarian, and a stutterer
Man,
in a bad neighborhood, like it was a pretty loaded situation. Um, so that was hard as a kid. But once it came, once we got to junior high and high school, and you want to start talking to girls, you're dead in the water. You know what I mean? Like you just like so even as I got, I put a little gel in my hair, as I like to say, I lost some weight, started eating meat, helped out a lot, I would say. But I still talk to girls like I was that 8-year old who hated his whole life, basically. And so I felt like I noticed that there would be girls who would be interested in me from across the way. And then once we get talking, somehow I turned them off. And I was like, oh, wow. So it's not like the looks are okay now. It's what I'm saying,
yeah,
And then I went on kind of um, just a blast approach as time went on. I said, all right, I'm going to talk to every girl who I have any interest in at all. And uh, in fact, I'll clarify. I was most talkative in high school. I always enjoyed, I didn't know I was doing it, but I enjoyed learning from anyone I spoke with. Old person, little kid, anyone in between. I was a waiter, I was a cashier at a grocery store. I would just schmooze
yeah.
because I was kind of like it scares me now that I know about AI. I was almost like AI learning, like what a human should be. And so anyway, yeah, basically, I just want a crash and burn mission. I talked to every girl I had any interest in. When I got to college at University of New Hampshire, which I didn't really get in, I just went. But anyway, and I would just learn. I would learn like, okay, this would get me to a conversation. This would get me to a phone number. This would get me to first date, but not a second. This gets me to a second, not a third. And so I really was not actually physically taking notes, but I was looking at good, 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 no, fix the no. Good, 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 no, fix the no. And then as time went on, I got pretty good at dating. I was killing it.
So
And
who was your
yeah,
inspiration? Who gave you the confidence? Who was there a heroic figure in your life that allowed you to evolve to that place?
I like that question. No one's really asked me that. No, I think what it was, I don't know, to sound kind of dark, I suppose it was an escape of who I was. I
Yeah,
was running as fast as I could. It wasn't that there was someone positive who I could visualize.
right.
There was someone negative who I no longer wanted to be. And that's kind of, I've never, that's a really good question. I was trying to build myself to be where I felt good.
Yeah.
I didn't feel good. I just didn't. And I think a lot of people don't feel very good
So for
often.
Well, yeah, no, I totally get it. So even in those early years of all of the things that were stacked against you,
Yeah,
were there any seeds that were planted that eventually gave you um, this thirst for better relationships, to see the world, to get to LA, to get
yeah,
on stage, all of these things that have become positive and harvested for you.
sure.
Were there things you saw early on that motivated you?
One thing that gave me a piece of confidence as a kid, I tested really well on like not school tests, but like achievement tests, like not straight up IQ, but like placement tests.
Yeah.
I was really good at those. Like they called them, I think they were technically called SATs, even though they weren't. Like they were the Stanford Achievement Tests. I
Uh-huh.
would crush those.
Yeah.
And my teachers take me aside and be like, Paul, you this is like freakishly good. And I'm like, cool. So do I stop getting teased and made fun of? And can I be good at baseball now? And they're like, no, no, it's completely useless. It doesn't affect your grades. And, but just know that you're smart. Like, great. So that kind of was a nice little prop. I didn't feel totally empty handed because I had that. Um, and I enjoyed learning. I just really enjoyed learning, and but that said, I was a horrible student, horrible, because I couldn't bring myself to care about anything in school other than stuff I would use that day. Math, you're going to use that day. English, you're going to use that day to a point. Once you get to junior high, you're like, look, I'm never going to use this stuff. I just want to know how to get good at feeling good. I want to not be teased. I want to feel comfortable in a group. I want to feel good about myself. I want girls to want to, go out with me. I don't care about history. I don't care about trigonometry. No, none. So, yeah, I think really just, I feel like I drifted from your question a little bit, but that was kind of what motivated me, I would
Sure.
say.
Sure. So talk to me a little bit about comedy, getting on stage. With everything that you've talked about who you are, that
Mm.
takes a lot of courage, takes a lot of gumption. I don't think people that haven't been on stage in front of a bunch of other humans understand what that's like. What urged you to do it and how was it?
So what urged me to do it was the one thing I liked when everything was horrible. My parents divorced, just separated, I guess, whatever. And I would spend weekends with my father. He moved in at my grandmother's house. She had a tiny little house. He had a tiny little room, and I would sleep in his room on the weekends. There were two twin beds in this little room, and he'd pass out early. So I'm sitting there in this dark room with a tiny TV sitting on top of his dresser, and the only thing that I had any interest in was stand-up comedy. So I'd watch it. I'd watch, Bud Freeman's and an evening at the Improv, and it gave me like there was an intellectual out. Even as a kid, I could learn how adults thought, and I could learn how adults thought on a high level because comedy is very high level if it's done right.
Yeah.
So, and it gave me laughs.
Yeah.
It gave me some relief. And so I said, all right, I always liked being funny. And I felt like if I could get good at that, then that could be my social tool for discomfort relief too. Like when I feel like I'm going to get teased, if things are going to, if I'm feeling naked in the group, as like the small guy or the like, not cool, whatever, the then if I could make a good joke, then I could like redirect. You know what I mean? Like I could take it off me and like, all right, pass the ball to somebody else. I did my part, Marco Polo, not Marco Polo, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what kind of drew me to stand up. And then as time went on, I was like, hey, like I didn't know this is part of the reason, but I did think about it in a sense. Like I'm a pretty frugal guy, having grown up without money and not liking most things that take a lot of focus. I liked the idea that with stand up, I didn't need any money to do it.
Yeah.
I could just sit by myself for free and just create ideas that could make me and maybe others laugh. I didn't need a studio. I didn't need a baseball field, nothing. And and then the idea that, of course, where it became a little bit funky, and I came to learn later on, I started to use it in the same way that I help guys not to use women, um, as a validation method,
Yeah.
as like a cover. Hey, if I'm good at this, then I'm valuable,
Yeah.
and I see a lot of guys do that with women. Hey, I feel like I'm okay maybe, but that girl's hot, and if she would go out with me, then I'd go from here to here. She's a 10, I'm a 7. Well, I'd be a 10 if that 10 went out with me. So, like this is, and so it became a little bit of a problem, and it really held me back actually. But that's what got me into it. It was kind of it was a release valve as a kid, and then sort of a, yeah, validation tool in a way, and not in its entirety. I
Sure.
just love comedy for what it is, but
Yeah.
there were some transitions there.
So let's step into modern day here. What is it that gets you up every day to do this work? Because getting into the mind of the humans can be murky. It's
Yeah,
something that can get messy, but you have to really be on point, help people change their lives. What is that? What is that energy that motivates you to do that? You have a soul you need to nurture. What is that
yeah,
collective energy for you every day?
yeah. I love it. And I say I love it not to just have a cheesy throwaway. Yeah, I hate when people on like Shark Tank are like, yeah, and then they
Yeah.
give their answer. Like, no, I really do love that question
Yeah.
because it's something I've had to really face more so lately, and I've really had to define it. Because we do know psychologically there's an urge to resist challenge. There is like humans, that science inertia. If you like, why would I go put myself out for something if I don't have to?
Yeah.
Are my bills paid? Do I have food in the fridge? Yeah, we're done. Okay, like,
Yeah.
who cares? Play with my kid. So what really drives me in this way. I have to really think about the problem I'm solving. And it's real. It's real, man. I see guys get smoked. I see them get crushed. Actually, my next comedy special is going to be called Men, a Gift to Women, because 30 years ago that would sound like misogynistic and like whatever, but now it's not. Guys, we're getting smoked. We're getting crushed. The male presence is so dwindled that it's withered, and it's not just costing men, it's costing women.
Yeah.
Women are sick of it. I've been a matchmaker for two of the largest matchmaking agencies in the United States. I have placed hundreds and hundreds of dates, often 60 a month, with people whose lives I'm really involved with, and who are paying for me to do that. And what I've learned from women, I'll ask women, and these are heavy majority middle-aged women who have been married once for a very long time in a traditional lifestyle, as far as like first marriage, long marriage, had kids. Why would you ever end it? And then they do. These women end it. Over 70% of divorces are initiated by women. When you talk about specifically women with a college degree of any height, over 90% of those
Wow.
divorces are initiated by women. And these are women who maybe they don't realize it at the time, and some just don't care. They're in the toughest bracket to rematch. They really are. That's why they have to hire a service to help. It's not, they could, but that's why it's helpful. So my point being, when I speak with these women, they tell me, I ask them every time, what are you looking for? They give me one word. They go, I want a leader. Really? I already knew that. Can you explain to me what that means? And then they go, I want a man.
Yeah.
That's what they say every single time. And these are women on both sides of the aisle. These are Republican women. These are Democratic women. More so, I actually work with more Democratic women. And so these are women who are not, they're for feminism on some level and female empowerment in a relationship. They want a man and they can't find one.
Wow.
Not even the guy who's been sleeping next to him for 23 years.
Wow. So let me ask you this question. If you had a dream tonight, you ran into that young version of you that had all these dominoes stacked against you,
Yeah.
and you walked up to that version and you click play on a film projector and a 60-second highlight reel of the life you've lived came up, would
Yeah.
that young version of you believe your life turned out this way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because one thing I've always felt like I have a really good hand. I really do. I've always felt like I've got some good cards. I haven't felt like I've known how to play it, and I don't feel like I'm necessarily really, and God, it sounds, I don't know, whatever. It sounds however, but I have often felt like I don't like the table where I'm sitting.
Yeah.
Like I've always kind of strangely like I've liked me. I just don't like where I am. I don't
Yeah.
like who I'm around, and I think that that's critically valuable. And it's not to say that I'm some psycho who can't see his own faults. Believe me, I got a list I can share with you. But I really have felt, and that's where a lot of my work has come from, is to help me understand how to pour more weight into those positive traits
Yeah.
so that then I can embody that and not and almost as blinders to kind of just stay focused on that path. Because yeah, the younger me would believe it, but the younger me wouldn't at all have understood how,
Yeah.
and to see it would make sense. But if you ask that younger me, obviously it's taken me however long it has, since whenever that question we're saying was asked. And there's still plenty of path ahead because I really want to get at a large scale. I really want to be, having a mass impact. And I think I'm very close in a lot of ways. Um, yeah, yeah, this has always been in me.
So let me ask you this. In the realm of art, entertainment, TV, film, music, love stories are the cornerstone and bedrock of all of it. What is
Mhm.
your favorite love story?
My favorite love story. God, I mean, like I immediately go to like an abstract, almost like so. Let me share. I'll share a tattoo with you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Understanding that tattoo has been a journey for me, even though I have it on my arm.
Yeah.
I was 21. I was pissed. I was just over. I had the first closest thing to a girlfriend you could say. I was a late bloomer. I really struggled, as I've been very, very, very clear. Graduate high school virgin. Like what all that stuff. And I got that tattoo out of anger, but not just toward that girl. It was just kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. And I was just really mad about how I didn't know how to carry myself with women. I didn't know how. I knew I couldn't just blame women. It would be too easy. It would be too simple to say, oh, women are dumb. Like as a whole, half the planet, and all of them have this one problem, and I don't. Like that's absurd, and I knew that, but I wanted to understand that badly what I was doing wrong. So I think that's the love story, is to see how I came to understand what was going wrong when I got that tattoo and how I was feeling then and how I could get to a point where I know what I'm doing now. And I have a 12-year, I've been with my wife 12 years. We have a 1.5-year-old little girl. She's a huge motivator in my pushing coaching, because she believes in what I offer and what we've built. So I would say that arc, that story right there. Yeah.
That's a brilliant answer. I will never get that answer again. I love that. So I never, no way. So let me ask you this. Everyone has a perception of you, Paul. Family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you in all these little Venn diagram bubbles. But you
Yeah.
run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Man, you ask incredible questions.
Thank
You
you.
should be a host. You know, My perception of me is it's a guy, to put it in real time, it's sort of like when the hourglass is shifting and the sand is starting to go to the other side and it's about to flip. Uh, I'm a guy who's finally starting to really understand his own methodology and is starting to really see what it can become. I'm a guy in that sort of a transition. Um, I'm a guy who's shifting potential to kinetic, if you will. And to be clear, I'm not sure which Greek myth it would have been, like the idea of like having those thousand, well, like a board with 1,000 rocks on your chest. Whoever that was, I don't know, Prometheus or something, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But that feeling has been there my whole life, this heavy, heavy weight on my chest. But all those rocks are assets, and not knowing how to ignite them, not knowing how to use them as assets, and instead just being buried under the weight of them. And I'm now just starting to shift to where I can really get out from under them, and then we're going to use them,
Yeah.
you
Then
know?
you're going to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if anybody's ready for better relationships, your sage advice, your business, where do they go? How do they ask questions? How can they get involved with your comedy, catch your
Yeah.
specials? Where's the best place to go?
So reach out. I'm on my website is paulroseberry.com. My email is paul@paulroseberry.com. There's a little info intake. You can fill out some info. I offer a free 20-minute conversation with anybody who wants to chat. No big deal. There's no obligation. If you want coaching, I can help you. I have helped save marriages. Like it's on that level. It, I won't pitch the whole thing now. But as far as, I love what I do, I love the opportunity. I get really excited when people are excited and committed, and they, as I said in the beginning, insist that it is time for change. Then we can do it.
Yeah,
Then we
for
can
sure.
do it. So reach out, paul@paulroseberry.com. Social media, yeah, I've got some comedy stuff on there. I post a couple little things about relationships. I'm not the guy who's going to sit here as an influencer and put a 40-second video 3 times a day every day. That's not what I do. I'm working on the real meat.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You want to know
Uh-huh.
how it works? Reach out. I'll share it with you.
Okay.
And it's not just for the sake of seeing change in others. I also want to live in a happier world.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a kumbaya way. I mean, I think it's annoying when people are maxed out, they have no energy left in their lives, and then they make horrible decisions on the road, or they're rude at a grocery store, or just, you know what I mean? I want people to be happier so I can have an easier life being
Yeah.
surrounded by happier people. I
Yeah.
like a good nod, when I walk down the street. I like hey, how you doing?
Yeah. For
So
sure. I
yeah, they
totally
can
get
reach
it.
out.
So before we get out of here, I'll make sure to put all these links in the show notes. I gotta know, what's the greatest live comedy show that you've ever seen, and what would be a dream comedy show that you would get into a time machine and go back and see?
You know, I one a couple of years ago, a buddy of mine hit me up last minute. He had somehow scored the last 2 tickets to see Louis C.K. live at the Improv in Hollywood. And I piled in like everybody else. Like, I'm not a comic. I sat in the audience like everyone else. Small room. I don't know what the Improv holds, 250 maybe. And it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
It was just so good. He had a Bible out. He's reading from the like, I think he did that later on in his Madison Square. But anyway, I mean, I got the 2 drink minimum like everybody else would. I had a couple tall beers, and I just died. And it was right after seeing a guy I really like, Mark Norman. But it was interesting because I learned by seeing Mark Norman that week and then Louis right after. I really love the conversational style of
Yeah.
Louis.
Uh-huh.
It's not just a very clever, A plus B, which I'm a very analytical guy. I like a good formula. Louis just,
Oh,
it's just a chat.
he's crazy good. Yeah. Yeah.
So good. So
Yeah.
yeah, that would be the show. I'd go back and watch that show again.
Yeah.
And I've seen the bits that he did since, and it wasn't the same.
Yeah.
I've watched them in specials from my couch, and I think, like I said, at Madison was what he was preparing for. It was good,
Yeah.
but in the Improv in a small room with 2 beers, yeah.
That's it. You know, it's interesting. My wife got me tickets for Christmas a few years ago to see Jim Gaffigan open for Seinfeld in Kansas City, and it was in
Wow.
a huge arena. And I was just like, "Let's do it. I'm in." And they were like, Jim was kind of what I seen on TV. I mean, he was extra funny at
Yeah,
live, but Seinfeld had fire. I don't know if he just got into it with somebody, but he had a fire that I've never seen. And I was
really.
like, all right, dude, let's just, yeah, burn it down and let's go. And he was just all over. In fact, he urged everybody at one point when he came out, take pictures, do the selfies. And he was making fun of, people taking pictures of everything. So I posted a couple online, and a high powered lawyer out of Hollywood came up and said, this has to go down. And I'm like, dude, Jerry told us to do this.
Yeah, what the
It's
hell?
weird. Yeah. So the whole thing was kind of weird, but it was fun. It was a good time. So I was
And
impressed.
this was just a couple years ago?
Yeah, it's 2 years ago. Yeah.
That's great because
So
Jerry's in his mid 60s.
yeah. And he's coming back to Kansas City. He's gonna be at one of our amphitheaters in August. Yeah, that dude runs all the time,
Yeah, no,
you
I
know.
love hearing that because I mean, as I'm building up, I just finished my first special at the end of last year, and I'm shopping it right now, so it's not fully released. Otherwise, I would have shared the info.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm like, man, I'm 47,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I wish I was at this place when I was 27. I
Yeah.
wish I was at this place when I was 20, whatever,
Uh-huh.
and then you're like, well, but if I get 20 good years, then I'll be 67, and then it's like over. But who says?
Yeah.
Who says? And get the 20 years.
Keeps
Just
Yeah, and it keeps going and going. I mean, look how many people have gone until they're God knows. I mean, Rickles was always funny and going
yeah,
into his upper 80s and 90s. He was a legend.
Harlan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, Paul, this has been a joy, man. Great to meet you. Best of
Joe.
luck. I'll get links and everything. Godspeed. I appreciate it, man.
Joe, I appreciate it. This is really like I was telling you from the beginning. I was excited about this, and you ever want to do it again? We can get a little more
Dude,
granular. I've got some very. We can talk about the systems.
let's do it. Let's talk.